All right, welcome back to the To Be Fair Show. I am your host, Johnny P,
Oh, here, real?
It's Q.
and we back.
Yes, sir.
So another episode. I ain't even gonna hold you. I don't know what number we on, but uh, we
We
rocking
season
and
two.
rolling.
Yes.
Yeah.
We rocking and rolling season 2.
Yes, sir.
How you feel so far about season two?
I think it's good. I think there's a lot of growth, progression. I think we didn't, got some good guests.
Mm-hmm.
A diverse set of guests too. Got a couple missing rappers on the guest list too, but
Missing rappers. What you
uh,
mean by that, Johnny?
missing rappers, man. A couple niggas supposed to be, I think, Johnson
Johnson
C.
Sessions.
Smith.
Mm.
I heard I was gonna get shitted on, but I'm
Mm.
clean.
You
Still,
said niggas was ducking smoke.
I'm still clean. They ain't want no smoke NBA YoungBoy mixtape.
Mm. Mm.
But no, it's all I don't know. We can get back to it, but just had to put a APB out.
Who you
Where's
put the APB out on?
where's D Dre? You seen him?
I didn't
You
see him
seen
this
him?
weekend.
I ain't seen him
I
neither.
ain't seen him.
I ain't seen him neither. But that's I digress. How y'all boys doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Which I guess I can kick it off with something. It is Black History Month.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes, sir.
I don't know. I guess it's a bunch of different places that we can go dealing with Black History Month. I do think it probably is good for us to spend a little time on one of these episodes because I know that Black History Month, at least in the past, has gotten like a bit of a bad rap when it comes down to people being like, I don't want to celebrate Black History Month. Black History is there all 12 months or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
some shit like that. But then those same people don't say a goddamn thing about Black History any of them other months. And I think that there's nothing wrong with actually like intentionally putting a focus to it. What is y'all feelings on Black History Month in general?
I mean, I ain't necessarily got a feeling towards it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it is something I do focus on like all through the year. My people, where we didn't come from, what we representing is something that's gonna always be in the front of my brain as far as it's something I'm always interested in. So
Mm-hmm.
this month, it puts a focus on it. There'd be good documentaries. There'd be good to
Good
see.
content.
Yeah, different good content. You hear cool stories and stuff. So I mean,
Yeah.
I enjoy that.
Yeah, and I say, I mean, I kind of agree with Johnny. You know what I mean? I say that they definitely had some. I learned something pretty much every year around this time. Something that I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know. You know what I mean? So I appreciate the consistent. You know what I mean? Education on something new. You know what I mean? Every year that we kind of contributed to or created within the our history here. Um, but I just kind of people complain about every goddamn thing at this point. People complain about everything. You talking about 12 months or 1 month, and man,
Mm-hmm.
bro, just find a way to make it the best it can be for you. You know what I mean? Celebrate. You know what I mean? Just find another way to celebrate. You know what I mean? We
Right.
celebrate a whole bunch of bull throughout the year, but you know what I mean? What's the point of complaining about us having a
Yeah,
month?
small little section.
Yeah,
Even if you do it all 12 months.
right.
What?
What? Why you
And,
complaining?
right.
Well, and here's another thing too. Just came to me like I feel like niggas every day be Black History too. I mean, it was about the Black present, and Black future. I feel like shit that's happening now, 50 years from now, they gonna look back and be like, oh,
Yeah.
this the generation that actually.
Well, that's what Ye said. I also think I like that idea.
I mean,
Even if we make March Black Future Month, but like push like speaking about the innovation of now and what
right.
we're trying to actually get to. I do
Mm,
think that is a for sure thing.
I think it's important. I think it should be, maybe not Black History Month, but it should be included as far as like it should, it's what I see Black people doing now is gonna be historic
Mm-hmm.
compared to what like our parents' generation, our parents' generation have done. I feel like the needle is moving more towards that
Makes
not
sense.
not
Makes sense.
only economic freedom but cultural freedom, to where we're not necessarily tied down to certain things from the past that are so called traditional. Not just relationships, but going into just how we sell the foods we eat, the way we vote in political systems, just all of that. I feel like it's changing for Black people. So Black History Month is a good time to not only look on the past but focus on what we're doing now too. So
No, I like it. I don't know. I think that we've had a discussion a couple times about this. I love to pick y'all brains about it one more time. where what is your thought of incorporating African history, especially pre-slavery African history, as a part of Black History Month?
You know, I feel that I don't necessarily feel that connection to. Man, I don't want to diss Africa or say Africa not important, but for me as a black person, that's not necessarily the same. That's not what I identify with. That's not what I relate to. That doesn't inspire me the way certain stuff over here does.
Yeah, that's crazy because I feel like I still stand where I was the last time we had the conversation. I completely understand and get Johnny's space and realm of thought, but I don't like to remove myself from that history as well. I don't like to remove myself from that history. I think that the reason why or someone like me, like where I would agree kind of more on the Johnny is because I'm not informed enough to know what that actually looks like. You know what I mean? It would be nice to. I would say that first off, I'm not going to say that we shouldn't do it. First, let me. I want to see what it looks like. It would be nice to see what those. You know what I mean? What those cultural what that cultural experience is like. You know, of course, not necessarily saying going over, but just to be able to intentionally pick out some of those traditions and things and magnify those. I would definitely be open to incorporating that into not even if like on the stance where like us as a community are doing it, but like something that we what I mean, hell, we can start trying and maybe in our families, you know what I mean, just kind of pushing some more of that as well. Just yeah, I feel like I think it's always important to know where you came from, even though, our history is, we've had a lot of history here. I can't disagree with that, but I definitely would love to kind of learn a lot more about how that implementation of that, how that looks.
Man, I'm not against learning it neither. I mean, well, I mean, I stand where I stand, but like, I'm also interested in African culture. I think there is a lot of like benefit that could come from learning it. I think it should be taught more in schools. But as far as like what
We might well let all that part go. They're not finna give us all that.
Oh,
You
I'm
know what I
not.
mean? We
I
might as well,
agree.
we're gonna have to
I
do
know
it.
that. I mean, I ain't saying that they are going to teach it. I'm just saying
Okay,
what
should
should
I
be,
get you?
what should be taught in school. But just for me and where I find myself, I guess, on the other side of this conversation is I identify more like because even I feel like even Africans don't even look at us like we're truly African. So that's the space where I'm like, do I really need to go and try to fit into a place where they've already made it clear that we're not a part
I've kind of
of?
seen both sides. Bumper, go ahead.
So pre-slavery Black people, to me, is still a part of Black History Month because of these are our great 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 grandparents. In
Which
comparison to like the split that did happen with the transatlantic slave trade, where like Africans inside, whether we want to say 1920 or something like that, those aren't direct. Well, like there's lineage, but we're not directly related. Like that's where like the ADOS branch of Black history came. But I think that in general, my stance is that um, I'm for it specifically because I think that it is empowering for Black people to learn about a start of their history that doesn't start with bondage and slavery. Um,
Question for you. We
yes.
ain't got to dive into it. I just want to have just a quick question. Do you believe that African Americans are natives, or do you believe that like we all came over?
I think that there's a probability of that happening. Um, and of course, like there's the conversation of it being like the mixing with the the Native Americans, X,
Mm.
Y, and Z. But go ahead.
I was gonna say, white people ain't get on them boats and find nothing. It was people here before, and where do you think they came from?
Eh.
A
I mean,
bunch of different
I
places.
just asked the
I mean,
question of
I
what you
don't think it was
believe. So
just
it
I
black
mean,
sounds
but
like
people.
but
you've given your belief straight out, plain and simple.
I mean, it was people here before white people came, and whether they were black and mixed with the people, but
All right, that's what I'm saying.
I
Like
think all
that's
people
hard
come
for me
from
to
I'm not.
kind of.
Africa. The first original man civilization comes from Africa.
Right.
They had enough technology to build pyramids and probably a lot of other technology we'll never even know about. To think that those people didn't also have the technology to build boats and travel the world is crazy to me. So I think the first people that landed here were of African black descent. That's just that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah.
That's just a quick
Yeah. Again,
synopsis for me. But I want to kind of piggyback a little bit on what Quint was saying about like I think we're talking Black History Month. I think it's important just to focus on what we have done here in America. Now, I think if we're talking about just education in general of Black people, yeah, I think we should know all African history. I think it's no less important than European history or Asian history. I think that should just be a part of world history that you learn about. World history isn't just what happened in Europe. So I think that's a part of it. But when I think about Black History Month and I think about like my people, my family, that's all based in America. And that's all people that look like me, talk like me, come from the same background. But that's to me, that's Black American. That doesn't have nothing to do with Africa. I think about all the struggle, and not even just struggles, all the inventions that we've created, all the contributions we've had to make America. America wouldn't be America without Black people. So I
Sure.
think that should be celebrated in Black History Month. How this is a great country. A lot of the reasons because they had Black
Black
people
people
here.
facts.
That's when I think about Black history. I think about celebrating that, not necessarily
No, I get it.
that. And that's just that's just my feelings on it.
Yeah, I think that and like I said, I understand both sides, and honestly, like your point, I think we just have to dig a little bit deeper and kind of like make it an actual like a bit more of a celebration. You know what I mean? I think that we should make it as big. You know what I mean? As big as we can within the realm of like even if it's just more in your home. I think so. I've heard of certain families who kind of
Yeah.
take it up a notch. I think that yeah, but also I go on both sides, bro. But I definitely agree with what you're saying, though.
And even
That's a way I wouldn't have thought of it, but yeah, nah, I kind of I completely understand. If you say Black History Month, and that almost doesn't really have much to do with
and even in like my family, when I think about Black History Month celebrations we've had in my church and stuff, it ain't based around slavery.
right.
Nobody like it's about a celebration of Black culture and Black people and the things that we have done here in America as a collective. Uh, Not to
Hey,
discredit anything about Africa or anything. It's just most Black people here don't have that connection to the motherland for whatever reason.
Could it be the fact that it's not taught? That's why most black people don't have that connection to the motherland.
Man, yeah, I mean, that's probably a reason.
I would imagine that. I also think that in general, a black kid learning more about their history that doesn't have to primarily deal with them overcoming an oppressor is probably really important, especially when it comes down to having an inferiority complex in general. And the history of black people specifically in America does deal with always having to overcome, and where there is a rich history and lineage that shows that we have been people of power for thousands of years. And
that's
these are
true.
also the same blood that's running through our bloodline. To where I think that every other culture in America celebrates the history of themselves prior to coming to America. I don't see why us as black people would be the only ones not to.
I
Because
feel like
those
we
are
would just
people that are still those are Irish people. This Ireland is still a whole country outside of America. We are just Black people in America. And because I don't think all Black people.
Okay.
There's
nah. I mean that's just fucked up to say it that way. It's our as you like to say. It's a little more nuanced when it comes to our fucking
history.
yeah, our history. I understand what you're saying. You know, everybody else does have that. You know what I mean? Have that.
Well, I guess
There's a
my thing
reason
is
they have a connection there.
right, and there's a reason why we don't. It's because our history isn't taught and it's not celebrated outside of us learning about MLK,
I'm saying how much
the
is
Jim Crow South, um, Juneteenth, and like these different little things of which is just a celebration of a nigga not beating your back any as much more. Where again,
that's not all
like the
celebrated.
reality is that most African Americans came from the west coast of Africa. It just is what it is. It's not much to like guess about. You can look it up. You can do the DNA test. Phenotype, what we're pretty much the majority, even if you don't want to say all. But I do think that there's an amazing accomplishments that came from that region that is a part of our history that can show us outside of just bondage, outside of oppressed, outside of downtrodden,
But that's what
outside
you.
of overcoming.
But that's all Black history is to you is just overcoming. I don't see
No, I
that.
think the
I mean,
history of
that's a
black people
part
in
of it.
Yeah.
America stems from an oppressor.
It comes from an
Oppressors.
oppression, but
Yeah, but I mean, there's still moments that I mean, even though the situation at large was what it was, there were some great things that we can say that you know what I mean. It's like there two things can be true at the same time, like you
Right, and
say.
this is why I don't think you should do one other than the other. And so, in me proving this point, this is not to
Negate.
negate like the amazing things that black people did in spite of.
Right.
What I'm saying is that it's also amazing to add on the fact that we have a rich history as well. That
Yeah.
comes in prior. And again, like I said, there's literally no other culture. Even the people that escaped persecution from their home countries still celebrate their home countries and the history and lineage of it. And there's pride there.
I should kind of. I mean, it's just a little different, especially when you bring in like the. Well, I
But
mean,
this
I
is
agree
our
with you. It's
country.
just
Our
a.
country isn't Africa. Like when it comes to American people, black people here, we're
Yeah.
Americans. We're not Ghanaian. We're
I
not
ain't
Nigerian. We're not from Sierra. We're not Sierra. We're from
Sierra
Sierra
Leone.
Leone.
Yeah.
We are Americans,
Right.
and that's
But it's
just the
weird that every
reality
other
of it.
American group still celebrates their home
Land.
country.
Right. Right.
Like so just saying we're Americans,
I'm
we
saying
would have to
because
be the
I'm
only
saying because there's a
vanilla group.
voluntary connection between that homeland and the people
And
And
in
see,
this
that was be the
country
only thing that I was
here.
going to say.
There
It's just
haven't-
that
there's no
really the only thing
what
I
has
would
Ghana
say.
came and done for black people in America
When
to
has
make me
Ghana had
feel
but
they got
so
the power now. They one of the Ghana, Nigeria. They some of the fastest growing economies in Africa right now.
so
They can if they wanted to,
But the thing
all
is
right, so
that
right now in America, let's not get into the bad faith part. Like to say right now, Ghana and Nigeria they have the GDP to come help black people in general, while they're just now really starting to really get on their feet, and like they've not went through decades, if not centuries, of exploitation. We can fucking look at the oil
facts,
industry in BP
facts.
and how like Africa was intentionally exploited and kept down inside a downtrodden. So to think that all the like they had the power to just do
they didn't have the
like that,
power to
that's
come and
kind of
save
like a
us. But
bad
they
thing.
Yeah,
definitely have
no,
the power and the freedom to come and reach out. And I get they done been through. Okay, I mean they were under the same oppression that we were, as far as when it comes to we call it slave colonialization, European taking over, splitting up their lands and stuff. I get it. I ain't trying to say that they did, but I'm also there was Jewish people that were oppressed that still were building and were able to establish connections with all the other Jewish people in the world. You know, and when I think of what you're talking about, that reminds me of Pan Africanism. I'm not against Pan Africanism. I think we should study it. But me as a black person in America, I understand there's certain things that we're gonna understand that people from Africa can't, and vice versa. So, and like I said, I'm not against learning African history. But if you're talking in the context or the pretext of Black History Month, I think that should be Black Americans. I think we should learn all about Africa. I'm with that. Well, I kind of agree. I agree with you there. As far, I think we should learn about it. There is a rich history in Africa that happened. You know, even outside of like the pyramids and stuff. That's what most people think of. You know, there's a whole continent of like dope ass shit that done went on, even in like Ethiopia and stuff like
right.
that. Some of the countries on the eastern, side. The whole continent is full with, cultural history. You know, I'm not
Facts.
not knocking that, but also as a black person, there is no connection to that, and there's a rich connection to what we're doing here, and I think there's a reason for it. I think we should focus just the black people in America because there is a lot of power and privilege we have being in, this position compared to some of the other, black cultures or black societies, communities out there. We are kind of privileged to be in America and not, be someplace else because there are a lot of rules and stuff that we can exploit to kind of make it better for us here. And so, I mean, that's where I'm at. I'm not too far crazy, I don't think, as far as, but I just don't feel that connection.
Yeah, no, again, I disagree. I think that your train of thought is a part of what leads to that. The fact that I don't know.
I didn't
I
say
think
I'm against it totally. I'm just saying just for Black History Month.
gotcha. I think that it just goes to where how we define black, and I think that to answer your question, why isn't there a connection? I imagine that a big part of our history is what's been told for us to learn and what has been given to us on a syllabus, and which typically tends to be European history. It's not going to be until we take it into our own hands to where we add African history into it.
And on my mindset isn't anti-African. I'm not saying we shouldn't know about what happened over there, but I'm just saying I think there should be just a specific space to celebrate Black Americans and what we've done here. It doesn't have to, involve anybody else's history. Because I think us embracing our history and what we had, that's how you create, and it hadn't necessarily worked the best in the past for us, but still focusing on that is, to me, where I see Black people going.
I think that I don't want this to be like too hot takey, but only focusing on the American Black history uh, probably leads to a bit of an inferiority complex in Black kids. And I
I
think that
never felt that growing up.
adding African history to the mix evens it out a lot. Where the majority of history class speaks up, well, it doesn't mention Black people, and then when we're mentioned, we
That's what I'm
begin
saying.
as an underclass citizen, and even if you look at just U.S. history, when you learn U.S. history, like the undertone of everything that deals with Black people outside of like George Washington Carver or some shit like that is Black people.
Subjugation.
Yes. And of course, we do a great job of Black History Month pointing out a lot of great things that Black people do. But the general undertone and almost the overtone of what is learned across the board in history class and is taught in general when it comes to like Americans is the struggle of and the plight of Black people in America. In which, again, like I said, I think that we also have an amazing, rich history um, on the continent with people like that are our literal relatives, like our great 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 grandparents and the things that they did. I think there's a lot of things that we can like take hold of and be proud of, and especially for Black kids to be able to not only learn about the amazing things that happened inside medieval time in Europe, Spain, Asia, but also hear of like some of the amazing triumphs. And the reality is that
But
you asked the question. You asked the question, why don't we have that connection? Again, a big piece of that is the fact that nobody's going to teach us about it. Like in general, history is written by the victors. The victors of America are white, and they teach world history as white history.
I get
So it's
that.
not going to be until we take the time and teach our kids about Ghanaian history, Nigerian history, to where it'll actually be learned, and we'll feel some level of an actual connection. And we won't only go and reach to like the pyramids of Giza and shit like
But see,
that. But it's going to like to believe that somebody else is going to do it and not us is crazy.
I'm not
And I
saying
think that
anybody
this will
else
be
should
the
do it.
perfect stepping stone to actually do it. Like it's an intention and a purpose to really do it.
No, I get it, but I ain't saying nobody else should do it. I'm not begging white people to come and teach me that. But I got two things. I also think, cause like our real relatives and you say our grandparents, I think it's doing them a disservice to say that the only thing in America is us being subject to. I don't look at my grandparents like that. I don't look at my great grandparents like when I
I
celebrate
never said
them.
the only thing.
But you're acting like what they were or the what they did just wasn't enough, and we got to go back and do
I
it.
didn't. I didn't. Well, I didn't say that it wasn't
It's an
enough. I think
implied
it was.
thing.
I think it's great what they did, but I don't think that a history of a people should
But
only deal with having to overcome a struggle. And then to act like you don't tell the story of like your grandparents or your dad and them being inside like small towns in South Carolina and the KKK marching down their street and that being a reality of their life and the way that they actually had to move and operate. Like we would be lying also.
You know the messed up part about it is like I'm sitting there kind of going into like the idea of what you're saying, and then see the thing is that if you tell the story all the way through, like there are some really great moments. Like there are some great moments, but if you tell that story all the way through, flames.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's the part. I'm like, bro, but if you just tell it and it's fucked up, it's like, dang, but if you just tell it from these few years right here and don't tell it all the way through, you know what I mean? You can have this spot where it was like, hey, the black doctors, the neighborhood, you know what I mean? There are plenty of different
Right,
like
right.
pieces
But
of
then they
time where you be
bombed and
like,
shit and
then
stuff.
got there, yep, then the flames come. And it's like, damn, yeah.
But I mean, but what's wrong with? I
But
mean,
and
I
you, I
don't
think
necessarily.
that
I guess it's celebrating those moments, and that's my thing. Was like things. So
I just
but
think
the
just
best
do
way
it
is to
all. Like
celebrate
it's
the
like
moments.
I don't think that you have to do one or the other. And I think you keep getting into like this idea
Oh
of
yeah,
like
No,
one.
because we want to add on to it, it's taking away from what has been done. In which to me I think that it's amazing what has been done and we can add on a piece of like history that literally every other culture does. And that makes a fuller history of your people.
I get that.
And
It'd be
this is
dope as
what
if if we felt that like at large, like be an acceptance, even from like them being here. If we felt that large, like I've seen both sides.
That's
You know
what
what I
I
mean?
was gonna say.
It's like literally, if there was like a more acceptance and like you know what I mean, we're so much more welcome into, and they're like feel so much welcome into our spaces, and our spaces were able to be, you know what I mean? Then if it would be like we could feel kin to one another. You know what I mean? Because like at this point, like you can look this way, you know what I mean. But at the end of the day, it's pretty apparent,
but
and at large to me, and like you know, I've been in a scenario where like I've been, you know what I mean, pretty much told like, yeah, the preference isn't you, bruh.
right.
Like that is not the thing. You know what I mean?
And we
So
supposed to have a connection to
And I
that.
mean,
well,
I
hold
get
on.
it. I get it. And on another
I
side,
would
you can
love to
see a
answer
lot of
that
them
question.
relate.
I want to answer that really quickly with this. So you do understand that we're not like the only people that deal with this exact same phenomenon. It's only personal to us because we're black. But Asian Americans literally deal with this exact same thing. Like second, third generation Asians, when they go back to their home country, they don't fuck with them. They say they walk, talk, they don't fuck with their teeth. I was just watching something about this like the other day. But like this isn't like only just like a black thing. In general, like people of a home country don't really fuck with the people that go out and have assimilated to America in general.
Yeah,
But
that's
Asian
true too.
Americans still embrace the history of their people.
But that's because those people left willingly. That's when those people
Well, I
that
mean,
migrated.
it's not because they left willingly. That's just the scenario was different. It's not because they left
And,
willingly. I
and,
don't
I
think
guess. I mean, I'll say this.
and truthfully, you'll be more mad at niggas
they
that
left
left
willingly.
willingly.
Right, right.
And
It
when
seems
you
like we
take
should get a benefit of the
That's
doubt
what I'm
more than
saying. I
anybody.
understand why they're mad. I don't understand why Africans would say that about us. We
But
didn't even ask to be over
it's
here.
because of the
Those
westernized culture
Asians,
itself.
they
Because of the
left for
culture
Hispanics.
itself.
They left
right,
because
but all I'm saying is that in general, people from the home country, and like I said, like you can go Hispanic, like you can go down. Most people, they have resentment for the American version
I ain't gonna go
of their
Hispanic.
people, and the American versions of their people still embrace the history of their culture, and that's the part that I'm saying. And whatever reasons and all the dynamics why, hey,
Yeah,
have
no,
at
it's
it.
a dope
all I'm
conversation.
gonna say is, there's a reason Killmonger was mad at T'Challa.
That
If you
shit a
go,
movie,
if
bro.
you
I'm
go,
talking
but
about real
it's
life.
real life. That do matter.
It's real
The
life.
metaphor made sense then. It makes sense now.
And what was the
He
metaphor?
felt like they was left abandoned, and that was,
Right.
and then so he didn't have that when he went over there. He was trying to take that shit over. He wasn't trying to be all lovey dovey with them. No, he was trying to kill T'Challa, take heads. He was over there with a mission, and that's what I relate to. When I looked at that,
Right, but I think
that
that's
was the shit
also an
that
ignorant
resonated
like
with me. I was like, damn, we were left over here.
I think
They
that
could have came back over
that
here.
comes from a lack of understanding and context of history though. Like be for real. Like if you understand African history between 1800, let's say 1850 to 1950, it's hard to make that statement.
I
Bro,
mean, I ain't I'm not this, but I'm saying
no,
in
but
modern
to build
history,
but you
in
just
modern
built the
history,
whole
they've
argument off of
had
that.
way more freedom. They've been separated from colonialism.
They've
Some
had
of these,
way more corruption. They've
some
had
of
way
these.
more governments intervene and corrupt their society in which they've had to literally restart their government over
Over
and
and
over and
over
over.
again.
And
Yeah.
that shit is its own vicious cycle that leads to fucking child soldier fucking militia groups taking over countries. And then you reset again. And then you do the Europeans find out, or no, right now it's the Chinese find out,
Yeah.
oh, you got an amazing resource. So
That's
now we're
right.
gonna find a new way to in 2023 do the new version of colonialism.
Them niggas
Like
paying
it's
for
always the
roads and
reset
all.
button on.
But at
So
what point does that
exploitation.
become a choice? Like them motherfuckers, there's people
Oh.
in Africa that are signing those contracts with these countries that are they're corrupt Africans that are keeping their people in those same places that are
That's true too.
making deals with the Chinese, making deals with the
Right,
Belgians,
but when do you
making deals
put
with the
history?
English. And my thing is,
So do you ever put history in a full context?
I'd love to do that. I'm just saying,
But you keep running from like the full context of it. But
what you're saying
like,
is they were oppressed in the past. That's not necessarily still the same case today. And what they
So
could do instead of
there's not.
Instead of
There's
bringing
not
in,
reminiscences of history of corruption
Exploitation.
or exploitation that still exists in Africa.
Yeah, I
All
mean,
the
but
way
I get it.
down to apartheid and what happened with that, going all the way up
I'm
to
not
the
saying that
exploitation of
that didn't
resources.
exist, but I'm also saying at some
But
point,
you're
just
building a point based off of the idea of why didn't you just
I'm
brought up the
building a point,
Killmonger
but
idea.
I'm trying to bring a point. I'm bringing it into modern. You won't keep on going back to 100 years ago, but I'm saying modern days. These are
The
modern
Killmonger point
countries.
dealt with
These are
why didn't
countries
they
that
come
got
back and help
internet
us?
just like us. Twitter got headquarters in Africa and stuff. They got jobs just like us. If they wanted to build a connection with us, they could have done it just like we could have done it with them. But nothing
Yeah,
is,
that's not gonna happen.
and that's why I don't. And that's why I feel the way I feel. I just feel the way I ain't necessarily ain't
Right.
gotta necessarily make the most sense. So I ain't even trying. I'm just
And I
saying.
think we gotta let some of that hurt go on our end too, bro. Like, cause what you're speaking of is the resentment for them. And that's what a lot of your perspective is birthed out of
It's a
is the
real thing.
resentment for those African people. And matter of fact, I just watched Woman King. I think that's what it's called. And I heard some people giving it hell. I heard some people really liked it. But I think that what they did in that movie was put in decent context. Um, the split state of mind that came down to the introduction of Africans in the slave trade and you know what I mean, yeah, just I think just both sides of the coin when it came down to why they were doing it and the actual coming of terms of like how this was an immoral thing and the infighting that happened with it. Like they introduced a lot of those concepts that I think even that part of Black history, African history, is something to be spoken of. Like I don't think that within maybe like the last 7, 8 years, people have gotten comfortable with even speaking about the fact of Africans' participation in the slave trade. But like even some of the ugly parts, I think it is important for us to understand our history of people in general. Like from like where we went wrong at, what we got right. And so like what I ain't gotta go down cliches, but we understand, bro.
I don't understand, but I think that'll be a good place to put a pin in it.
Okay. Well shit. Johnny, what else you got for us?
Well, I got a question came from game night the other night. Had some friends over. It was a good time, really. You know, be
Yeah,
on the
for
be on
sure.
the lookout for that. But you know, as we was winding down, I guess a question was posed. Uh, I guess it started with why do women work or what do women work for? We had that conversation, whatever, and then it led to why do men work or what's men's ultimate goal? I'll start with Rail because it's more his question.
Uh,
You
well,
pick
I
that
get.
nigga up from anonymous real quick.
Oh yeah, nah, shit. I don't care. Hey,
Oh shit, I did.
but yeah, nah. I guess that is a good question. I almost feel like it's something that is just like inherent. It was always been a man's job to work. You know what I mean? It's always been a man's job to work to provide for his family and all of this. And I think that at some point, it's kind of become like it's still just the same role. You know what I mean? It's still the same thing that we always had to do. So it's just building self in order to and I guess fuck it. It sounds bad, but like to entice the proper partner, or maybe some dudes do it to entice multiple partners. But then that to me that draws us to another question. Is like, okay, so let's say you do everything that you do, right? You do everything you do as a man for whatever reason it is. We can say, or actually let's pass it around. I guess. So what is the reason that I have taken the role as a man, and what have I been working for? I guess that's how you pose it naturally, right?
I guess we're gonna answer it. We said we gotta answer it.
Okay, so shit. I've done it as like I got married at a young age, and so I literally came into that role of having to provide for someone other than myself in a time period where I didn't even understand how to do it. You know what I mean? I'm talking about the giving plasma to try to make things work while in the military, while you know what I mean, doing different things. So like it was almost like it's that natural, the natural. I don't know. It's just that the gut of a man. It's like, bro, you gotta get it. Like you gotta get it. Ain't nobody gonna give it to you. There ain't no amount of like you being pretty ain't gonna help. You know what I mean? You being pretty might get you. You may be when you younger be able to hit something or something like that, but once you get to a certain age, that's out. Like there's a level in which your value is built on your financial stability and that stability that you can provide potentially to someone else. And so I guess that's kind of like how I came to that.
No, I mean for me, I've never been in that, I ain't got kids, I ain't never had a wife, so I ain't never had to be in that traditional provider role. But it's something in the past I've said, I aspire to, it's something I want to do. But I think for me personally, while I work, it's the same thing we said about women, it's freedom. Like I just
Hmm.
want to be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it. I don't want to feel constricted by, oh, I can't do this because I ain't got money. It's
Hmm.
just the freedom thing for me. I want to just be able to move, how I want to move, when I want to move.
Yeah,
So the only way you can do that in capitalistic societies, you got
it's
to
to
have
have
some
capital.
coins.
Facts.
That's what make that's how you. That's what you put in the machine to play the game. If it's an
The
arcade, you
facts.
gotta have them quarters. You gotta put them
Facts.
quarters in it to keep on playing. And so, I'm just working to get my quarters, man.
No, I feel it.
That's facts.
So I think that there's two answers to it. So I think the original question. Well, all right. So I asked Jeremy, and I answered Jeremy, then I answered the original question. I think when we personalize it, what am I or what have I been working for in general? Um, Probably the word would be stability. I don't think that it'll be much more than like that specific word of stability and being able to not worry about yeah, I guess like not worrying about a lot of immediate things,
Hmm.
needs, and making sure all of those things are done, and then once getting past that, making sure that I have that inside a big enough safety net to where if something goes wrong, I'm still safe.
Hmm.
Like for me in general, like that's what I would say me working would be. I'll be lying if I just pretended like on the onset of me working, I'm thinking about like me getting a wife and
Hmm.
kids and
Yeah.
different shit like that. Not at all. And this is where I extrapolated out to like the further one. When we get into like these conversations and we get into like why men do things and why women do things and like what traditionally people used to do things for and what they do it now. I think in today's time, most guys that I have ran across, especially guys that are single in general, it's not that they're working to be able to make enough money to provide for family X, Y, and Z. Most people are fairly materialistic. That's men and women. Most people
Hmm.
are working for material possessions that attract any a lot of the opposite sex. For guys, that's cars and trinkets and different shit like that. For women, that's BBLs, that's breast jobs, that's makeup and what I mean, getting their hair done and shit like that.
Bags and
I
stuff.
think that
It's both on both
across the
sides.
board,
No,
like
that's facts.
everybody, nobody's working. Well, I won't say nobody, but most people aren't working with the idea of like the opposite sex outside of exploiting the opposite sex in mind.
I think most people are working to uphold a lifestyle that the opposite sex would like. I think it's an image. Things. What you say about the guys? Most guys are working to get the cars, the
Or
houses.
what would I guess what you're saying? Yeah,
Well, it's a
like which
lifestyle.
would attract the opposite.
Which would attract. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
not necessarily working for the money to get it, but you want to
Mm-hmm.
have the car that the girl like,
Hmm.
or
Mm, that or that will get you said girl
well, you
or
right,
girls because I don't even
girls,
think it's
yeah,
girls.
or you want to be able to buy the designer because that's going to attract a certain type of woman.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's and we go both sides. I ain't just gonna say men, but I think that's most people in general are working to uphold a lifestyle that they think would be appealing to somebody of the opposite sex.
Then I think that like we kind of get a little lost in it a little. Well, I ain't gonna say a little bit. I think we get lost in it a lot. Like I think that like for in my mind, like getting money, like to where Q was at, it's like that getting money was to get to the foundation of where you didn't have to worry about should this happen, then am I just assed out? You know what I mean? Should this happen? Just that being able to supply that sustainability and stability, or stability into sustainability, to where you don't have to worry about should this happen, then what do I have to do now? You know what I mean? There's a level of okay, well, I've already done the work to be able to make it through said thing. But then I think that once you get to a certain point, or not even some people to a certain point, you allow this idea of doing it for self, you know what I mean, to go into doing it for everything outside of self. Well, I feel like it should get in my mind. I would like to get to like a point where it's like, okay, well, not whatever you want to say, to where it's like, okay, well, I have this foundation. Now I can actually focus on what is it that makes me happy. Like once I have this level of sustainability and this foundation that is, built on these 2x4s reinforced by more 2x4s, you know what I mean? Like, and I have this foundation that can weather a storm, then no longer do I think that like, okay, well, I already know that money's not gonna make me happy. That's first off. I know money's not gonna make me happy. It's just gonna make me it's gonna make me not have to worry about the lack. You know what I mean? And once there's no longer the lack, then there comes a point to where like, okay, well, what actually makes me happy? That's when once you have that checked off, where it's like, okay, where I'm gonna be okay, and then I can actually be a benefit to the people around me financially. Then it's like, okay, well, dang, well, where is it that I find my happiness at outside of that thing? Because that thing, obviously, you can see with how many people with money committed suicide, how many people with money you can tell they're just
And there be a lot of
all over the
homeless people
place.
that be happy as hell too.
Right, right, and I see that all the time, and so like that, I would say that like once you build that foundation, then which I think you should probably be trying to find self, but as a man, I think that the priority is to get yourself into a position where you have a foundation and some sustainability, and then you got to go ahead and start digging at self to see exactly what it is that's going to make you happy. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how I feel about it.
I think we live in America, man. You gotta have a certain amount of money to be happy in this motherfucker. You gotta, you
It's
gotta.
something else.
Well, for me personally, I gotta work. If I don't have certain shit, I'm gonna be depressed.
Yeah.
It's just if I can't afford
Certain level
a
of
certain
lifestyle.
level of lifestyle, I get in a funk or mood. I don't even be my normal regular self. So, a lot of it's just they say money don't buy happiness, but damn, if I hadn't been happy with some coins in my account though, I would definitely had some. Especially when you feel like you ain't you didn't you get to that break where you ain't got to worry about it. A lot of time that be happiness for a lot of people. At least for me, I know that's I can find happiness in that. I ain't too complicated of a guy.
No, I dig it.
So, at what point in that ownership as a man, right? And let's say that you out there, you know what I mean? You out there, you done got your footing in a little bit, as far as financially. At what point, or let's start here. What would you say you're gonna define as tricking for a man? What is tricking? Because I was informed recently that like all men trick. I didn't know that, but then as I was provided a definition, which I didn't know what it was, and I want to get, or should y'all want me to tell you what the definition was that came down after talking to these guys first, or you want to tell me what your definition is of what you think about
Nah,
it?
just wait and tell us later.
Okay, go ahead. What you think tricking is?
Tricking is, it's leading. Like we say this shit a lot. Leading with money. Like if that's all you got to, like if you know that you have to lead with money because you ain't got nothing else to offer. I think that's tricking. No matter what the dollar amount, I don't think it's a certain dollar amount. But even if you buying an ice cream, like she gonna like me after I buy this ice cream for her. That's tricky. It could be I'm gonna buy a car. She gonna like me after I buy this
Damn,
car.
buying the ice cream is tricking.
I mean, if you doing it for the wrong reason,
Well, see, but I think
if
what
you,
you said
that's
How
what,
do you?
it's the
So a
intention.
date in general is
and
tricking.
it's the intention. I think it's the
But isn't
intention.
a date in general like
I
based
ain't
off of
say
the idea
I
of
ain't
like I'm
saying
gonna
a
spend some money
I
and
ain't saying a date. Now I'm talking about more like
you
the
just
dude.
said ice cream. That's a
I'm
low
talking about
ass
the
bar.
dude that'll like send the chick, $10, go get something. Like that's a form of trick.
Well,
It's
all
So what
right,
he
so
said,
that
it
that
sound like
version of it would be
it sounds like what he's
right,
saying is that it's not about the dollar amount specifically. It's about the intention behind said dollar being spent.
right.
and so I'm
It's
asking you
about
to
the
clarify. So what is the intention that you're speaking about?
about just making the chick like you because you're spending money. It don't.
Okay,
It
yeah, yeah.
don't necessarily gotta be
Uh,
$1,000, $20,000. But if you, oh,
And that goes back to
oh,
the
what you
leading with
want?
your wallet.
You want some coffee? All right, so that's tricky. I mean, it's not just you ain't doing it just to be nice. I mean, you might be, but you wanted to like you, and it ain't. And I don't think it's about the. Like I say, it's about intention more so than dollar amount.
I was about to say, I think the what tricking is right in the definition. I mean, even in the name, like pretending that you got somebody, tricking somebody into thinking that you have something that you don't really have. So, like, you might use your money and try to buy some stuff, but you really ain't got it like that. But you're
Yeah,
using this to
I don't
try
know if
to.
I agree with that
Nah,
because
because
again,
you could
like
have it and still trick.
a lot of niggas
I
have a
don't,
bunch of
it ain't
money.
tricking if you got it. I
Well,
don't
I
believe
don't,
it.
I don't really agree with that statement at all. But yeah, I'll tell you.
Well, Johnny, going off of what you just described, then you're saying it's men using their money with the intention of getting a woman to like them, right?
Right.
So would you consider a date to be tricking? Because you're going on that date with the intention that she's going to like you.
No, because outside of me paying for the date, I'm gonna have jokes. I'm gonna be a good conversation. There's a whole lot other than just the dollar amount I'm spending within the
Still the
date.
baseline of attraction or like
Yeah, there's a whole lot of
mutual
other
something
things
there.
in
But
the
you just
date besides what I'm spending.
but you just said no, based on what you just said the money like however much money him giving a girl $10 for ice cream. You said that that was an example of tricking.
It
So I'm
could
saying
be.
if a guy takes a woman on a date, do you consider that tricking? Because the whole purpose of the date is for y'all to get to know each other. Hopefully y'all like each other.
I don't think dates are tricking because it's a
Yeah, that's
mutual
a different
interest. I'm
context.
not talking about going on a date. I'm talking about just sending somebody money just cause.
Like
Or
usually going on a
Okay.
date is not specifically
yeah, I'm not
tricking.
saying
Unless
dating.
like
I'm
you
not
could look
saying any money spent is tricking.
Okay.
I'm saying as little as $10 could still be tricking. You know,
Because it's based in intention.
right?
Based in intention.
Yeah, you could have a $200 date, and if it's a mutual, that's not tricking. Or it could be you could send a chick $10 to get coffee, and that is tricking. So I don't think it's about the dollar amount. It's just about said intention. It's about does that person really like you outside of said money? You know, if she wouldn't go on a date with you and you try to send her to convince her,
that's tricking.
that's tricking.
Yeah, if your way of getting the woman to be attracted to you and like you
It's
is based
spending
off of
money.
dollar. I think that common courtship is okay.
Yeah,
Like generally,
I'm
like
not
you go on
against
a date as a guy, you
that.
pay for X, Y, and Z. I think there's also a difference how a date could be tricking would be if a girl shows no interest in you and you offer to take her to like the most expensive restaurant to impress her with your dollar instead of who you are as a person in
And
hopes
she
that
only
just your
says yes because of the restaurant.
right. I think that that's when it then becomes tricking. It's when again now you're leading with your wallet more than who you are as a person, or not even more. Like it supersedes it by a big amount. And that's when I think that when that's what you lean on for like any attention, anything from the opposite sex, I think that that's what I look at as tricking.
And the funny thing is that like that's what I had came to, right? But I felt like it was based on intention. If my intention is to get you to like me purely off of a dollar, you know what I mean? No matter, like I say, no matter how much it is, like I'm trying to buy your attention or buy if I'm trying to buy any type of result, I think that there's where you're tricking.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But I was informed, right? I was informed. And I was talking to an old head. I done had a couple of homies, you know what I mean? A couple of homies, and I'm like 5, 6 people in. And I even posted on social, like, based on what I was told is that if a man spends any a dollar amount, he's tricking. If he spends a dollar, he's tricking. They said that all men trick because
That
all
sounds
men
crazy to me.
understand that they have to spend money in order to.
Not all men have
Yeah,
to
but I say,
spend money to get women though.
and
No,
it's,
this is what I'm just trying to tell you what I was informed of. I 100% agree because I've never like led with pockets. Even like in going into like a let's say middle class, you know what I mean. I don't even have I don't even have the yeah. I can't think in that realm because at the end of the day, I still live like I'm, you know what I mean.
I'd rather a
Been
woman
living
think
a
I
long
have
time.
less,
Yeah,
and then like
I ain't gonna say rather them think I had less, but like
I
I
would.
would say I'd rather them just not be looking at that as a thing. Like don't what is you? It's not like a thing to like pay attention to pockets. I'm sustainable. You know what I mean? I'm sustaining myself and to look at me more based in my moral compass and like, you know what I mean, where I stand on, on character. That's more of like what I would, want to be. I don't want to be gauged on
right.
I don't want you to gauge me on how good or bad of a man I am based on that shit. Now you start trying to prove something. Now you done started tricking to try to get her to gauge you as more, you know what I mean? Yeah, then yeah, you
And I
tricks are
think
for
that
kids.
that goes to like the thought. This might be an older thought in which I don't know. Like a lot of people placed the value of their manhood on the money that they make, and whether that's relationship, whether that's social status wise, that's what they lean on to be like their best, strongest character trait. And I think that for me, I can always say I don't think any woman has dated me off of the strength of like that was my main asset that I led with. Like I never talk about how much money I make, how much anything, nothing. I'm not flashy. I don't show any money. I mean, I don't wear jewelry. Like I'm really, really regular. And in general, if you end up liking me, unless you just heard that I have like a certain amount of something or whatever, it's typically off like the conversations that we done had. Off of like the way I think, or and probably same for me the way I'm attracted to the way you think. The character of which who I am in general, like you see something inside that. In the past, one of the main things like the artistic space of which I was at, like there was value in there. But for me, I know that the value of me as a man isn't based around a dollar, and usually it's not ever been seen as that. To where I can't really say that I've ever had to like spend money
Yeah.
to like get a woman to like. Usually, I mean, if I'm being honest, like if I go like before like the past 5 years, usually women that I talk to made more money than me. Like they
Yeah, no.
And I think we kind of touched on it the other night about far as it goes back, like we talk about like our grandparents. As far as the control. A lot of men did that in the past to have certain type of control over a woman too. And not to, and like I say, a lot of men was getting, a woman that needs them more so than a woman that wants them. And today's, I think the modern man more so wants a woman that wants him rather than needs him. And I think that's one of the bigger, differences, at least for me, at least I know I can only speak for myself, but that's
Yeah.
something
yeah.
I'd rather, I think that's way more appealing than to just have like financial control over somebody and them only there because I'm paying the bills. It's like, what
sure.
kind of.
So it's still tricking even if you got it.
Yeah, I think that
It is still tricking even
think
if
so.
you got it.
I think it boils down to that. Yeah, that's what it boils down to.
That's something that a nigga with money
Hey, so
said
what's
that made
It
himself
is
feel.
still tricking, boy.
what's the equivalent? Is there equivalent on the other side? Like the women trick?
The
That was
closest I could think of was like thirst trapping, because I think at the end of the day, what we're talking about is using an asset on your behalf to cut the line,
But wouldn't
to try and get the attention of somebody that's probably not interested in you.
this may be a hot
So when it's
take?
Skinny Jones, go get the BBL to try and get that athlete that they didn't like since 12th grade or college, and what I mean, hoping that works out. That's to me, that's the female version of tricking.
So does it
Wouldn't it
does it
be them-
require so you're saying with the
Yeah,
female
he-
version of tricking, does it require like surgeries and all of that, or would it be like this idea of over sexualizing self, even
I think
just,
that in general, both
or
sides
not
of it
over,
is
just-
using like your like the value that you bring as your sex. Like men is usually money. Women, that's like their
beauty and body?
yeah.
Beauty, okay.
And I think that when you exploit that to try and entertain the interest of somebody that probably ain't even worried about you, I think that's when it gets close to like the tricking side.
I see. I kind of got to, because I mean that's kind of what we got to do anyway. So if a woman don't like you, and say her love language is acts of service, or
I ain't
whatever,
interested in that. If she don't like me, I ain't interested.
Yeah.
I'll
But
tap
if she
out
don't
real
Yeah,
like
tap
you,
out.
if she don't like you, no matter what her love language is, you're still not going to woo her over.
Is she
That's
gonna
the
exploit
thing, though.
the hell out of
We've
her?
seen this plenty of times where
seen
women
that
don't
happen.
like men or
I've
don't
seen
like
it.
a man. I've seen men woo a woman
seen it.
over.
Not
So,
with money though, it's usually character.
I mean, I'm just saying though, like in general,
I done seen both.
I done
And then they
seen.
stayed long time.
I done seen.
Yeah, I don't know how long it lasts. I don't know about that part, but I don't
Just
know.
enough to get them draws.
I done seen
a
it
guy
get
I was
wooed.
watching a
You
podcast.
hear me? I done seen her wooed. I don't know about how long
I
they
done
was
seen
together.
it,
None of
man.
that
That's all I'm
part.
saying.
Listen, I was
She was
watching.
wooed though.
I was watching a podcast, right? And it was a guy. He said that this was advice that his dad gave him, and he said that his dad.
Hold on, how old was he? Around this ballpark. How old
He
was the
probably
dude?
around our age.
Oh yeah,
Maybe
see?
like 5, 10 years older. But what he said was that his dad gave him this advice. and his dad said, "Don't hang around." All right, but whatever. He said, "Don't hang around fat women too long because you're gonna end up liking her, and she gonna forget that she fat, and then she gonna say something, and you gonna remind her."
Oh shit.
And I think that goes with any mindset when it comes to overreaching. So like even if Shorty don't really like you, but you done did a whole bunch of shit and you get on her nerves, guess what? She
You a
gonna
broke nigga.
yep, you that nigga, you all that. Same thing they gonna do with the Big John,
That's what I
Yeah.
mean.
That's
every time.
crazy.
That is what
That's
I mean.
crazy.
So yeah, you might be able to temporarily get her like entertained with your money, but after a while, like she'll be like, "Nigga, you ugly anyway. Your breath stink.
Yeah,
Yeah, this."
they gonna run them
Like,
down.
I can see it. I can see it.
the minute you piss her off,
Yeah.
gloves is coming off. Like, cause she didn't like you to begin with.
Yeah, I can
she was
see
just
that.
using you for what.
She hung
if you led
around
with your
long enough
money,
and started like, "Boy, he actually."
yeah. If you led with your
cool,
money,
kinda
she's using
funny.
you for your money.
But then that heart, like whatever that thing was, it came and reminded her real quick.
Hey, that's funny because I was actually talking to somebody at work and not recent. This was a little while ago, and I was talking to. I was like, you ain't never seen a dude, and then like he looked better over time. And she was flat out like, nah. I was like, damn. I was like, it's like I've like been around somebody that wasn't necessarily attractive to me at first, and kind of based on my, you know what I mean, where I stand and what I think and where my morality lies. Like, okay, well, I mean, you ain't, you know what I mean. You can become a beautiful person.
Motherfuckers start getting attracted to character and shit. You're like, damn, you got a good personality, shorty.
Hey,
That's what his dad said. That's all I'm saying.
this nigga knew. You said you just fucked up your whole lip. You was broad. He was broad at first. I think you might have just broke your base down a bit.
I'm talking about you, nigga. Not me.
That joke that fucked you up though. I'm talking about but the joke. Okay, you don't see the joke that fucked you up. She was gonna DM you on that joke.
I'm talking
Tell
about you, man.
Never mind. I'm gonna let you live.
I'm gonna let you drop the link one day, man. Calm down, man. Calm down. But I think that'd be a good spot to go ahead and reel it back in. Anybody else got anything before we roll?
No, not really.
Positive takeaway?
That sounds good.
Nobody?
I'll try and start it off.
It's been a minute.
It's been a while.
Positive
Before we get out of
takeaway. We had game night this week, and I enjoyed game night. I think that went really really well. Footage should be coming soon, maybe next week. OTW, but I think that it was great. You know, seeing everybody get together. Some old friends, new friends, some people getting introduced to new people, and everybody coming together and actually like really enjoying themselves, getting out their comfort zone, played games, had what I mean, great conversation. And I know for me, I enjoy like the fellowship of people. And anytime I can get around people and just fellowship and talk shit and laugh and joke, it's amazing for me. So yeah, that was my positive takeaway of the week was just being able to like really, really get together with people. Of course, the next day, shit, it hurt. I ain't a young what they call it, young spry chicken no more. So like when I'm drinking till 1, 2, that next day gonna hurt. It take about 48 hours to like really get straight. But outside of that, like I really enjoyed it. Like we was out up to about 4 in the morning just talking, chopping shit up, enjoying life. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's a positive takeaway.
Nah, mine gonna be y'all see the hat I got on. University of South Carolina. Shout out to that girl Don Staley. They putting this some Black history, you know. So it's not from this week, couple weeks ago, but they building a statue for Don Staley downtown Columbia.
That's dope.
Black woman. Also, the only other statues they got at USC is Asia Wilson and George Rogers. Black people, you know. So for Black History Month, that's gonna be mine. You know, shout out Don Staley. Shout out the
Bro.
Gamecocks. We
Hey
got
man,
I used to think Don Staley was so bad. My sister, when my stepsister
got
played
that dub
and
yesterday.
played basketball, and like I used to go to the WNBA
Sting
games.
game. I was about to say that.
Bro, I used to
Dawn was
like
fire.
what the braids,
Point
all
guard
the bro.
with
She
the-
was
yeah.
light skin, bro.
I've been a fan since a little kid.
little
I've been
kid.
a fan since the Sting too. Okay,
Yeah,
the
it's
facts.
the Sting,
The
but
facts.
She got that championship last year.
Mm-hmm.
We gonna bring another one back this year.
Ain't she the highest paid WNBA coach now?
With
Now she in
college basketball. Yeah,
Oh,
she
okay.
yeah she's one of the highest paid coaches. Period.
Okay.
You know, but we 27-0. We got that
Oh, that
dub
ain't bad at
yesterday in
all.
overtime. We got another game next, but forever to D. Shout out them Gamecocks. Don Staley getting that statue. That's my positive takeaway.
That's dope. I guess mine it's gonna be more on along the lines of cues. I guess I would say one thing, and then I guess it's like a piece of advice for kind of like I guess long term relationships in general. It's like make sure that you also have fun. Make sure that you have fun. Because it's easy to get in that box on that hamster wheel and continue to do the same things over and over and over and get yourself, you know what I mean? Only thing you're doing is you're just killing yourself faster. You're killing yourself faster,
That's
and
right.
you'll regret the time that goes by. Because as you get older, you see these years start flying by. Talking about flying by. Just think about COVID. Like COVID is almost like a mark in history where you be like, oh, that was post COVID or pre. You know what I mean?
Shit was 3 years ago,
3 years ago, dog.
Shit crazy.
That is, and so like don't take for granted the time that you have, the people that are around you, and make sure you step out and have some fun because
Yes,
you'll definitely
sir.
regret it, and you'll look up one day and be like, damn, like yeah, okay, well you may have got all of this accrued money and da but if you ain't enjoyed yourself and you ain't spending time with people that you love, then you still ain't got a damn thing,
Mm-hmm.
and
No,
that's it.
that's a good one. I fuck with that. Fuck with that. Appreciate the time. That shit.
Hmm.
You ain't getting no more of it. You ain't getting no more of it. So you gotta appreciate what you got. But I think that was a good conversation, fellas. I want to tell everybody to follow us at the 2B
Be
Fair
fair show
Show on Instagram. Follow us
at
at
the
the
2B
2B
Fair
Fair Show
Show
on Facebook.
and
Follow us at the 2B
2B Fair
Fair Show
Show.
on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification button up there. I am your host, Johnny P,
Over here, real.
It's Q.
and we out.